A critique of Resident Evil 7, herein meaning a detailed analysis and assessment of something, especially a literary, philosophical, or political theory. Not a video where I shit on something extensively because I perceive an imagined fault. No, this is a detailed analysis, but not as deep as my dissection series. Not gonna be 14 videos, 8 hours of, Okay, here we go, and obviously there will be spoilers. Resident Evil 7 came out as a result of a dying and decrepit horror genre. Alien Isolation was the AAA video game that brought the cherry on the cake of the whole atmospheric horror game with no weaponry and roaming unkillable enemies, the sort of thing that I feel was fully popularized by Amnesia and then punctuated by Outlast. This genre kept going, and after every copy and paste horror game was released with a complete host of invincible lethal enemies and every sort of theme you could imagine was used, nothing felt very new or interesting. Nothing was making much of an impact any longer. Then PT came out and it shook the genre to its core, a game with literally just nothing but exploration and hyper-realistic environments with supernatural elements being woven into the gameplay subtly. Now, when the game shot off in popularity, developers probably rejoiced at the hilariously bad decision to axe the game. Capcom jumped on the chance to really reboot their franchise, and I know people are going to say it's not a reboot, but I'll borrow a phrase from Red Letter Media. It's a soft reboot. It takes a lot from the series and dramatically changes it from the core, while also maintaining it universally as a piece of content that fits in the chronology of the series. When the demo was released, I saw a clip that to me just looked like a complete repurpose of PT. I was fucking interested. As a person who made an 8-hour series going over the ins and outs of design in horror, and two of the most incredible attempts at maximizing the experience in a video game, I wanted to play this. I wanted something new. So I played the demo and I was won over immediately. I wanted more. I came home from work on a Friday and saw that the game was released. I checked out Markiplier playing the opening and I was just so curious. I bit the bullet and bought the game. Something I'm vehemently against. I say that, though I did hear a lot of praise for the game before jumping on it. I wanted some good old new-ass, great fucking horror. Not like Outlast and Alien Isolation, where they focused on one element popularized by other content and forgot to bind the game with everything else. I'm talking about a big leap, a change in design and in horror that we needed. This game was it. I played the shit out of it the first and second night, absolutely loving everything it had to offer. A couple of bumps here and there, but an overall satisfaction with several of the more climactic moments in the first half of the game, but by the fourth quarter and towards the end, it felt sour. Felt like something had misfired. So I'm here today to form a critique on Resident Evil 7, to really jump into it in its many aspects. Won't be going very far outside of just my experience, otherwise I would be calling this thing a dissection, so this is definitely going to be opinionated. I am going to try and break the game down into sequence and go through it bit by bit since it will be easier to follow. However, this is very complicated and long form, so it's going to be a little bit confusing sometimes. I completed this game 7 times to date to get a strong hold on its content, and I have looked into a few people playing it in several reviews. That is essentially the information I'm going from with this, so if you have something noticed to be wrong in this entire video series, let me know. I am not going to be referring to past Resident Evil games all that much. It is important that this game is judged for itself as opposed to its parents, however good or bad. I want to judge it against other games in the general genre, or the general industry, but I guess I will have a couple of references here and there. Also, once again, similar to the dissection that I performed, I've seen a ton of terrible reviews that have helped spur this video into existence. People have gotten so much shit wrong in their respective videos, and I'm not going to focus much on that at all, really, because, again, this isn't a dissection. However, there was one thing that was common in all of the videos that we will be covering. Aside from that, let's get stuck in. I'll format this into 20 to 30-minute videos and hopefully not end up making thousands. Now, let's begin. Resident Evil 7 is the story of Ethan surviving a house of horrors, but once you complete the game and its DLC, you will get a sort of full story. Mia Winters and Alan Joni are transporting an E-Series bioweapon in the form of a little girl named Evelyn. Evelyn was created by the company Tensou, and they were transporting her with the interest of potentially selling the resource on the black market. The weapon itself took on a persona of a little girl, possibly by design, and had an established desire for family that could be manipulated. This allowed Mia to act as a mothering figure which prevented her from being attacked by Evelyn and gave her influence over the weapon itself. Unfortunately, Evelyn managed to escape from the two Guardians during transport and caused massive damage to the civilians, workers, and the ship itself. The ship was torn in half and eventually washed up in Dulvey, Louisiana. The Dulvey plantation, inhabited by the quirky Baker family, are going about life as usual when Jack, the father in the family, finds both Mia and Evelyn. The family are concerned with looking out for them, but then strange things begin happening. Lucas is found unconscious, and upon investigation, Zoe finds that Marguerite is infected with some horrifying disease or sickness. Jack hurries to subdue her, but is quickly turned as well. Finally, Lucas is given the same treatment, and Zoe attempts to escape the estate. She finds Mia and the information that there is a cure for what is happening. Zoe then bides her time and waits for an opportunity to create the cure and escape the Baker estate. Emily infected the entire Baker family, similar to the people on the ship, with a psychotropic mold, and forced them to look out for her. Her stranglehold was maintained with a form of mind control. In exchange for providing observations to a third party, Lucas was immunized against Evelyn's abilities and used his position to take advantage of other victims and put them in games he constructed. As time moved on, the Baker mansion and surrounding buildings began to decay and rot along with the many victims the Evelyn-controlled family lured in. Each of the victims were toyed with and or murdered with the intention of adding them to the family, which amounted to the collective mold in the house. This was often enough for the molded to form, a hyper-evolved bacterium generated by Evelyn. They are similar to foot soldiers that solely operate according to Evelyn's wishes. As time moved on, Evelyn was separated from her regulation with her handlers, and this caused her to age rapidly. This didn't change her want and need for a family, which is then perpetually encouraged by her original family victims, which also resulted in Mia being manipulated into contacting Ethan Winters, her husband. Ethan believed his wife was missing for 3 years, and contact from her drove him to search her out in the Dulvey plantation. Exploring a seemingly abandoned house, Ethan finds Mia imprisoned in the basement. During their escape, Mia's infection takes her over and she openly attacks Ethan, forcing him to fight her until Jack knocks Ethan out. Ethan then spends his time in the Baker mansion trying to survive each of the horrors brought on by Evelyn while uncovering the story that started it all. Zoe manages to get in contact with Ethan and inform him that there is a possibility of a cure. Ethan then defeats Jack, Marguerite, and Lucas Baker in their own areas while finding the 2 ingredients to the cure and then injects it, canonically, into Mia. That will be ending 1, leaving Zoe to her fate. Regardless of the player's choice, Mia ends up in the wrecked ship and searches for Ethan while experiencing visions of Evelyn, who refers to Mia as her mother. Eventually, Mia's memory is restored, revealing her history. After finding Ethan, Mia gives him a vial of Evelyn's genetic material. If Ethan cured Zoe, Mia succumbs to Evelyn's control and attacks Ethan, forcing him to kill her. If Ethan cured Mia, she resists her control long enough to seal Ethan out of the ship and save him. After leaving the shipwreck, Ethan discovers a hidden laboratory inside an abandoned salt mine. There, he learns that Evelyn is an E-Series bioweapon capable of infecting people with a psychotropic mold that gives her control over victims' minds, resulting in their insanity, superhuman regenerative abilities, and various mutations. Using the lab equipment and Evelyn's genetic material, Ethan synthesizes a toxin to kill her, and then proceeds through a series of tunnels that lead back to the Baker house. Evelyn assaults Ethan with hallucinations, but he overcomes them and injects Evelyn with the toxin, ending her facade and revealing her as an elderly woman in a wheelchair who's been rapidly aging since her escape. Evelyn mutates into a large monster, but aided by the arrival of a military squad, Ethan is able to defeat her. With the threat over, the squad and their leader, who identifies himself as Redfield, extract Ethan by a helicopter. The helicopter then flies away. It leaves behind the ruins of the Baker Mansion and reveals a variation of the Umbrella logo. So how well was this written exactly? Well, a lot of people will tell you that any and all plot holes and ridiculous conveniences are explained by the game being a Resident Evil game. It's supposed to be like that. It's crazy. No. You don't get to be a hyper-realistic and immersive game focused on horror that just has this goofy story and not receive a few criticisms for it. Resident Evil 7 has a whole bunch of neat storytelling elements that get us to where they want us, a creepy, large, and connected house filled with choices and skill-encouraging gameplay. It needed to be believable so that things are put in place throughout the game to build its world and maintain the final result of some atmospheric and intense horror. I liked it mostly. I felt like most things were accounted for, and it makes sense on a baseline, but then I started to look a bit further into it, and I started to notice the strings. So the story in its entirety still suffers from having to be a part of a larger and more fantastic narrative. We need the government scientific corporations behind it all, we need the over-the-top military force, and of course we need the ridiculously oversized campy monsters in our intimate survival horror game, because otherwise it wouldn't be Resident Evil, right?
7 returns us to more of the outrageous and campy elements that I used to adore.
Just no. The campiness was never something that was supposed to be campy, it was a result of the time, and not to mention bad translation. So why the fuck did the devs decide to have something as tonally sound as this? And then we also have this.
Zoe, get your ass back to the house. I will deal with you later.
What a mess. For this story to work, we need this stuff to just make sense. Progression of events need to match each other, and if it all retains some form of meaning or purpose as we go, then it will be wonderful. If only. Okay, so Mia is the MacGuffin of Resident Evil 7. A MacGuffin is a device in a story that serves to push everything in the story forward, giving characters motivation and allowing certain events to take place that otherwise could not. Mia is Ethan's entire motivation for the game. Literally every moment he has to escape is prevented by the need to save or cure Mia. His ability to maintain himself in all other situations of the game, no matter how horrifying, is from the potential that he can cure Mia and return home. This would be a lot easier to swallow if we had a little bit more going on than a nice message from Mia at the beginning. The player has a lot more trouble connecting to the value of a relationship when it's essentially established, then mere minutes later torn apart and banked on to maintain the story. It's fucking distracting. Was I the only person who literally lost all sympathy for Mia the second she decided to chop off my hand? Like, yes, she was the wife and everything, but I don't know much about her at all, so my only concern is staying alive when the characters start talking about cures. I would go as far as saying, okay, well, I'm going to get the fuck out and find help, I guess. The thing that most of these more modern survival horrors do is prevent you from escaping, forcing you to move forward and embrace the game. Resident Evil 7 has you kinda wondering why you're staying in this place when given the chance to escape. Mia is the only thing the game has to offer, and she's incredibly inconsistent in her behavior. For example, the Bakers are permanently changed in the main game. They are constantly attempting to kill you. Mia, on the other hand, seems to flit in and out of being infected convenient to the story. Why is Mia tied up and locked away in some scenes, but others allowed to roam free? Why is it that Evelyn doesn't have complete control over her? Mia and Zoe were infected the same day 3 years before by Evelyn as the Bakers were. In fact, it's implied that Mia was infected before, so it's not a time release thing. Maybe Mia is partially immune to Evelyn. That would be wonderfully convenient because it allows us to have these moments. That Ethan can feel remorse and regret for his decisions and see her in a loving and familiar state. This is cheap. It's pushed into the narrative in order to give us some form of emotional attachment to Mia, but the thing is that it's mostly dropped as the game moves forward. Right up until you have to make a choice for her, which we'll come to. So once Ethan escapes and gets a glimpse of a real person in the deputy, it struck me as odd that he just assumes that Ethan is the one who shut the garage door down. Also that Jack is able to appear behind him without him seeing him. It's all so ridiculous, and despite this being something I can criticize in other areas, I can talk about it here because this is the whole police guy gets killed trope in horror films. The guy just doesn't believe the shit that's going on, and moments before he's integrated into the team and made aware of the situation, he gets killed. Why would Ethan ask what the deputy's doing there after he said he's investigating missing persons? Why wouldn't the deputy get a follow-up from his station if he wasn't reporting in? Shouldn't they send somebody? Why would Jack straight up kill him when the goal is the whole family thing, is to just keep adding people? Why does anyone get straight up killed? Evelyn kills a heck of a lot of people, as opposed to easily mind controlling them and maintaining some sort of familial army. Gosh, I have to stop myself. We'll cover all of these things as time goes on. My point here is that a bunch of things conveniently happen in order for this dramatic thing to happen, and that sucks. It's the kind of writing that's present in a lot of media, and we don't have many people pointing it out. Most of the time we're looked at as assholes for doing it, but hey, that's my MO, so what do I care? You know when you find the tape that Amir apologizes to you on? It's heavily implied that she was captured after trying to get her message recorded, and that tape ends up in the recreation room. How the fuck? Why? Who would have moved it there? Who would have cared to? The other really strange thing is that the next time you see Mia, she's being captured again, but by Lucas. None of these things really connect at all. I feel like the whole reason that Ethan finds the tape Mia recorded in the recreation room is to sow a little more sympathy and explanation into her character without really earning any of it. Like the scene where she bashes her own head against the wall to try and prevent any more damage coming to Ethan was quite evocative. The thing is, the whole morphing back and forth between Monster and Mia, is Evelyn making this happen to screw with Ethan? Is Mia trying to just fight an infection mentally? Well, that's just inefficient, since Evelyn could immediately capture and infect him via the family, or Jack, or whoever, or even the creepy tentacle stuff anyway. Did the family watch the tape Mia made and think Ethan should see it and allow him to roam the mansion and eventually kill them? Like, I could see Jack slowly falling down after Ethan chainsawed him, wondering where his plan went wrong. Look, it's just weird that the tape is fucking there, is all. Why aren't Mia and Zoe under the same control as the Bakers? It's been 3 years and it's selective. That's just so convenient for the two people we have to choose between narratively. Not to mention that we literally never see Zoe in her mutated form. She's literally never displayed to us in anything but a strangely sympathetic yet controlling position. How does she know where Ethan is even to phone him? Is this a landline thing? Is she using a mobile to talk through it? Is she allowed to walk freely around this estate? Can we not use the phones to phone out? Why doesn't she leave the estate? Is she a prisoner just sometimes, when it fits the story? Okay then. Narratively speaking, Evelyn controls all of this. It is presented to us that way regularly. She has immense power that's growing and evolving over time. She uses the people she infects as pawns and spreads her vomit regularly to increase her spreading influence. Yet so many instances in this game make me question the abilities of her as a whole. Why does she allow Ethan to escape into many sections of the house? Why doesn't she mass spawn the molded to stop him, or tentacles? What even are the molded? It's argued that they're just vomit from Evelyn, but it's also implied that they're what happens to people once they're fully infected. Why doesn't Evelyn just use her influence on Mia and Zoe to completely stop Ethan? Why, when she has multiple opportunities to subdue and control Ethan, doesn't she take them? Why the fuck did Tensu allow her to be transported when she has this level of power that Mia apparently vaguely understands is expected to happen? This is insane and ridiculously difficult to control. If Evelyn's only goal is to make Ethan her new daddy, then why doesn't she force the injection at any major points that he is captured? Conversely, I understand that everything that happens with Lucas is because he has been immunized from Evelyn's hold, but she doesn't get to control him at all? Can't she threaten him with death, threaten him with her crazy tentacle powers, or the horde of enemies she could send after him? Is Evelyn even bothered by the fact that she can't control Lucas? Should she be trying to expel him from the house, or perhaps kill him if she can't control him? Speaking of Lucas, how is it that the whole party sequence was even recorded? Is it a fucking GoPro that transfers to VHS? What? Also, how didn't the recorder burn up in the fire, and why the fuck did Lucas leave it for Ethan? Speaking of Ethan, why the fuck do his restraints magically fall off the moment he leaves his chair? And why can't he pull this magic on the extra strength super tape later on? Why are the videos the focus aside from it being a horror trope? Isn't this modern times? The sheer limits we're willing to go to maintain references and cliches while we ignore any kind of realism here is phenomenal. Why does Evelyn, at her most knowingly able to be killed, as her master plan, blow back Ethan with some supernatural wind as her final move to stop him from killing her? Evelyn has so much power and she doesn't fucking use any of it at any time, where it makes any sense. We're dealing with Billy from Outlast once again, just situationally unable to do anything we have known them to be able to do. A supernatural being with godlike powers who just has moments of incompetence to serve a story that doesn't even end in a realistically shitty way. I.e., she wins, every fucking time. Seriously though, the reasoning for all of Mia and Zoe's chances to be cured as opposed to the main family of Bakers is that they are in different stages of the infection. Why would that be the case? Mia was infected longer than any of them, and Zoe's been infected for 3 years. Why? Also, why is there chem fluid, separating agents, and herbs just lying around? Why in the world would there be an abundance of those, and why would they be in boxes? Ah, but Mauler, didn't you know that Jack was in the army and Lucas is an accomplished engineer? Yes, that doesn't answer my questions whatsoever. Why the fuck would you leave it everywhere? Ah, but Mauler, didn't you know that Resident Evil has done this many times in the series? Yeah, that's not a fucking argument. Why the fuck does fluid and gunpowder make bullets, for Christ's sake? Why the fuck is there a morgue in the Baker's house? Did they build it specifically after they began kidnapping people? Why the hell does the cure-making machine that we need to convert the D-Series head and arm happen to be sitting right next to Zoe in the room that apparently Lucas took both of the girls to? That's so fucking convenient. Also, the phones are proven to work. Call someone for help, for fuck's sake. Also, yes, the Spencer Mansion was built by the same people who built the Baker Mansion. Good job. Just raises more questions.
Inventory management is such a good and huge aspect of survival horror. You keep looking at your inventory to see how many chem fluids and herbs you have. Also, why is there chemical fluid I think it's called chemical compound, isn't it?
Oh, you got separating agent and chemical fluid.
Why is this stuff all around the place? What is it? Why? What? Why are there uprooted herbs all over the fucking house? Why? God! Stop talking about immersion, then
Well,
shit, get out of my face.
Moving on, I guess the serum specifically designed by the scientist that created Evelyn, meant to completely destroy E-Series assets, ends up making her incredibly large and strong. Who would have figured, eh? This makes for the usual climactic and ridiculous battle at the end of the game that's just as hilariously stupid as Uppercut Boulder. Just supposed to believe this hulking monstrosity can't quite figure out that even falling on Ethan would kill him. But Mauler...
7 returns us to more of the outrageous and campy elements that I used to adore.
I'm sorry, that still isn't an argument. This shit is stupid. What's more is you have such a different game in its first half in how horror was handled that this shit is fucking strange. Now, on approach to the conclusion of the game, Ethan is captured or absorbed by Evelyn, but obviously not killed or converted for reasons. Then this results in him having a mind meld with Jack and Zoe Baker. Why didn't Marguerite make the guest list? No idea, but this shit is really fucking weird and it annoyed the crap out of me. Up to this point, we don't have any sympathy for the Baker family. They are monsters, we haven't seen them as people, we've only been given scraps of information, but the writers remembered halfway through that this was supposed to be a sympathetic enemy because they were victims of Evelyn's power. So this scene is shoehorned in. Does it make sense narratively? Well, apparently you can become in tune with Evelyn's thoughts and the thoughts of those also infected once you reach mid-stage infection, but that would mean that Ethan is infected. And why the fuck can't Evelyn stop him if that's true? So we have to rule that out, meaning that Jack has just sent a message to Ethan's head from beyond the grave, as his normal self, to let Ethan know that he wasn't actually evil and that Evelyn is bad. Good stuff, man. Why is Zoe just hanging around in the fucking background? What are you doing? Does Evelyn know that this is taking place? The entire reason for this event is to garner sympathy for the Bakers. Sympathy that would have been better developed through, oh, I don't know, a few family videos of what things were like before the fall, maybe a video of how they loved and cared for each other as a family. Nah, let's put something like that in the paid DLC. For fuck's sake. All in all, I pick on this scene so much because it leads into the ending cutscene, a cutscene in which you are punished or rewarded narratively for choosing between saving the lives of two equally innocent people. If you decide to save either of the two, Ethan laments about how awful it is that the Bakers were victimized by this horrible monster, Evelyn, without commenting on the irony that she was a victim as well. Created in a lab with the need for a family and the power for mass destruction which led to all of this horror. Something that would have been a lot more meaningful, but no, they decided to quickly mention that the Bakers were victims too, guys. I have seen so many fucking reviews that comment on this as some sort of brilliantly tragic storytelling that the Bakers were actually victims. Like, obviously they fucking were. As if they were people in the world who could regenerate their limbs and walk on walls while spewing nests of flies from their vagina. The game once again did not earn this kind of meaningful conclusion, at the very least not until the fucking DLC. I mean, did we forget about the hordes of people who've actually died as well? Are they not fucking victims? Furthermore, if you did choose Mia, she and Ethan are cleared of all issues from any kind of infection and go on home to a wonderful life. If you choose Zoe, she fucking dies. She just dies. And Mia gets teleported in to finish the story regardless, but then also dies. I had a big old rant about choice in video games in my past dissection, and my god, this is fucking bad. To my fucking horror, no reviewers talked about this heinous shit. Some of the worst writing and cover-up nonsense and storytelling I've seen for a long-ass fucking time. And I'm being hyperbolic, some people did mention it briefly, but nothing significant, nothing as what it deserves to be labeled as. I'll go over it a bit more in character, but for now I want to stress that choosing to save one innocent over another based on barely any reasoning, and then being punished for one and rewarded for the other as arbitrarily as they performed it in this game, is goddamn awful. Way to make the player feel shitty for no reason. And for those saying, but Mulesley, why would you pick Zoe over Mia? Well, when I originally streamed this game, I made it clear that I didn't like Mia after her nonsense with mortally wounding me, so I said that I'm in this for me now, not her. When Zoe began helping me find the cure, defeat Jack, and get us the means to escape, me and the people watching my stream collectively decided to save the human being with more value, and I was fucking punished for it. Fuck you, game. Go eat a dick. Ah, but Mauler, she died because she was too far along in the infection, and the cure you gave her cured her and killed her, similarly to Jack. No, that kills these people instantly, not to mention that Mia's been infected longer than Zoe, and finally, why would Zoe be cursing Evelyn's name continuously as she sends the tendrils after both of us? It's fucking stupid. Though in fairness, the ending credits that followed were pretty cool. It is interesting that there are so many unaccountable holes in the story when there's still attempts to create a rich and inviting world with projects and events that all converge to maintain the Resident Evil world. I feel like the little things always get lost along the way and we have to fill it in as fans, but even we have our limits for what can and can't make sense within the universe and the rules that they've supplied us. And the more these things pile up, the more that immersion is lost. Despite that, I consider the story relatively solid. It could be far worse, but it's far from genius, as many have referred to it. Well folks, this is the end of part 1, and I genuinely hope you enjoyed it. Next time we're going to be getting stuck into further aspects of Resident Evil 7, and start digging into its best and worst parts, and trying to get an idea of where it stands in the genre and the industry. Thank you for watching folks, and I will see you next time.